What can I claim as a tax deduction? Well, this always makes me smile. Depends who you speak to. Because if you speak to the instant expert, your mates down the pub, they'll tell you, oh, you can claim for this and you can claim for that and you can claim for the other. I think what you need to kind of bear in mind is take all of this kind of advice with a pinch of salt. Because let's be honest, did, the plumber, the builder, the whoever down at the pub, did they spend years studying and keeping abreast of what HMRC allow? Probably not. It's like anything really, isn't it? You can claim what you like. The trouble comes when HMRC pick it up and then start asking questions. And then you've got a problem, because then you've got to prove that you were a little bit negligent as opposed to deliberately trying to avoid paying tax. So my advice would be, make sure you speak to the experts. Not quite that simple though, is it? Because HMRC, you go onto HMRC's website and it looks like it's been written in Swahili. For the layman, the ordinary entrepreneurial business owner, if you've got time, that is, to go and scroll through the pages and pages of information and then try and interpret it, which of course you could get wrong, it's really, really difficult. But then in some respects, some accountants will get it wrong too, because actually they're not really accountants, they're bookkeepers, and it's what they've interpreted. You need to make sure you go to a trusted professional who can really help you to make sure that you have legitimately claimed what you can claim for. Don't get me wrong, there are lots of help and support and guidance out there, and there are lots of things that you can do legitimately. For example, if you've got a meeting and you're having a coffee, then that is a legitimate business expense, as is, driving and needing to pay for parking. So that's fine. You need to keep hold of those. Now, whether you obviously keep those in a paper form or whether you keep those, electronically via an app on a phone, for example, that's your choice. Equally, mileage, you can claim for mileage, but you've got to have good records. You've got to be able to prove, where you were going, that it was definitely a business expense and, why. And again, whether you're a sole trader, a partnership or a limited company, there are different rules and regulations. For a limited company, it has to be wholly, exclusively and necessarily in the course of business, whereas it doesn't have to be that way quite to the same degree for a sole trader or a partnership. Equally, clothes, workwear is something I get asked about all the time. If I had £1 for every time I've been asked about, well, what about me claiming for a suit? HMRC's guidance on this is very clear. If you've got, for example, in the beauty industry, if you've got a logoed up beauty top that, perhaps is cerise pink for argument's sake, then clearly that's allowable, because that has to be worn because your employer says so and it's in the course of duty. However, a business suit, HMRC will argue that you would need to wear clothes anyway and that you could wear that out in an evening, where of course you're unlikely to go out in your employer's logoed up bright cerise pink beauty top. So just think about that when you thinking, does it sound too good to be true? Can I claim for it? But seek advice. There are lots of things that you can claim, and there are stuff that you can claim and you can put through your business but are not necessarily allowable for taxation purposes. So your accountant, when producing your annual accounts, will have to disallow things like, for example, personal mileage. As a sole trader, you may choose to put the car and all the expenses of that car through the business, but you'll need to disallow an element for personal mileage. And if you say, no, I never use my car for personal mileage, I walk or I cycle, HMRC will understandably be a little bit sceptical about that. if you had a business van, might be a different matter. So in truth, we could sit here all day talking about what's allowable, what isn't allowable, but the best thing to do is, it does change. It is open to interpretation, so go and get some good advice from your accountant to make sure you don't get caught short, because the last thing I want you to get is the taxman the HMRC coming out and saying, no, you can't, we can't accept that, and then going back several years, because they have far-reaching powers these days. And that's before we've even talked about what you can claim for VAT. VAT is an absolute minefield, so go and get some advice and don't get caught short. So that gives you a little bit of a overview of what you can claim for tax purposes.